After a tumultuous 24 hours in the world of professional wrestling, AEW delivered the exact show that was needed right now, and they did so in their debut at the Kia Forum in Los Angeles, California, or more specifically Inglewood, on the January 11th, 2023 edition of AEW Dynamite, a stacked card that concluded with match 7 in this ongoing best of 7 series between the Elite and Death Triangle for the AEW Trios Tag Team Championships, this time in Escalera de la Muerte, a ladder match. And as you can imagine, with the 6 people who were in this match, this was an absolutely insane ladder match. It didn't go too long. It got in and got out pretty quickly as it was in the main event slot, but for the amount of action that we did get, it was pretty chaotic. Almost immediately, within the first few moments of the match, things were just flying and bodies were crashing and burning, and it was a lot of fun to watch. We had Kenny Omega do a dive out of the ring, intending on landing on Pac, but of course Pac moved out of the way, so Omega crashed through a table. Meanwhile, on the other side, Matt Jackson hit a dive out and did crash onto someone and went through a table. So already within the first few minutes, we're already going through tables, and it only gets crazier from there. At one point, I believe either Matt or Nick hit a 450 on someone through a table. Phoenix hit a Hurricane Rana on Nick off of the top rope and planted him down onto a ladder bridge that was kind of leaning up against the ropes. But when Nick landed, he landed the back of his knees first. So that was pretty brutal. And then we later on had the cornermen get involved. Alex Abrahantes got involved on behalf of Death Triangle. He tipped over the ladder that Matt Jackson was climbing, about to retrieve the championships. So Alex tipped over the ladder. And then in came Brandon Cutler with his cold spray, and he just kept spraying Alex in the face. And then Kenny Omega came in and hit him with the V trigger. We had Penta hitting Matt Jackson with a fear factor on a ladder bridge that was bridged between the top rope and a ladder that was set up in the middle of the ring. Penta driving Matt Jackson headfirst down through this ladder. And then all came to an end when Kenny Omega came in, and on that same ladder bridge, he hits Phoenix with a one-winged angel off of the ladder down onto the mat. While Omega was down, Pac goes up top, and he comes down going for the Black Arrow, but Omega gets his knees up and prevents it. Omega is the last man standing. He makes the slow climb up, and they kept stressing on commentary that you only needed to pull down one of the 3 championship belts in order to win the match. And Omega, he took his time thinking that something might happen to stop it, but there was nothing. He pulled down one of the championships, and that was it. And in Game 7 here, the Elite are once again your AEW World Trios Champions, which was the outcome that most people figured we would get. A lot of people figured they would just win the belts right back on the night that they returned back at Full Gear. But Tony Khan had the idea to stretch this out into a best of 7 series. Not all the matches were perfect, but they were good enough. And we had some matches that were better than others. Some of them kind of blended together. But in these last couple matches, we had some stipulations, and that really helped add a little extra excitement to the whole ordeal. And so here with this ladder match, easily the craziest match of them all. And like I said, it was an expected outcome, but it was still a cool outcome with the Elite getting the win. And I assume their first big feud coming out of this will be against the House of Black. Malachi, Brody, and Buddy Matthews. I assume that'll probably be the match at the Revolution pay-per-view. So we'll see how things turn out from there. But shockingly, that was not the biggest story that came out of this show. To me, the biggest story, the biggest headline coming out of tonight's episode was the shocking return of one Adam Cole, Baby. We had Tony Schiavone in the ring, and he was introducing someone, didn't say who it was, and out comes Adam Cole to a huge ovation from the crowd. And of course, they're doing the whole boom thing and Adam Cole, Baby. The crowd was loving Adam Cole here in this segment. And we had a very interesting promo here from Adam Cole because he was a total babyface in this promo. He came out, he was talking about how grateful he was and how appreciative he was. But he said that this was going to be a good news, bad news situation here that he was going to talk about. And he was talking about his injuries. He mentioned having a really banged up shoulder, and he had 2 back-to-back head injuries. Those were the concussions that he sustained last year. I wasn't fully aware of the first one. I know the first one took place somewhere between Double or Nothing and the Forbidden Door show. It was around that period of time because Adam Cole was not wrestling. And then at the Forbidden Door show, you saw towards the finish of that match, Adam Cole got banged up pretty bad. He looked completely out of it. And we have not seen Cole wrestle on Dynamite or on TV at all since then. He made maybe 1 or 2 appearances after that, but then for the rest of the year of 2022, we did not see Adam Cole. But he has been on Twitch, and he's been streaming and all that kind of stuff. But he said even in this promo, like these last few months for him have been pretty hellacious. He described some of the experiences that he went through, the dizziness, the vomiting, barely sleeping at night, even waking up in the middle of the night some nights and just pacing back and forth, just completely lost. Mentioned how even Britt would ask him, what's going on? Are you okay? And him just not knowing what's wrong with him. And around this point, he was very teary-eyed as he was delivering the promo, and the fans were hanging on his word. And they were giving him applause and all that. And he mentioned how the wrestling industry, this sport, is a very give and take type of industry where these guys, they go out there, these guys and girls, they go out there, they put their bodies on the line and they give it their all, and the fans receive it and they support them, they appreciate them. And he mentioned the fact that the past 6 or so months, he has not given the fans anything. He's been on the sidelines with this injury, and yet all of these fans have tweeted him, they've commented to him, talking about how they miss him, they love him, and they don't even care if he doesn't make it back to the ring. They just want him to be okay. And I myself was one of the fans who shared that same sentiment, because not having him around for that long period of time, your mind tends to wander and it tends to think of what could the ramifications be for this guy long term. And wrestling it's great, but it is not the be all end all, and it is not bigger than just his regular form of life. And that was far important to me in my concern for Adam Cole than anything else. But then he got to the bad news. I saw this coming, but it still gets a nice pop every time. He said the bad news was not for him, but it was for everyone else in that AEW locker room, because Adam Cole is back, and the fans popped huge for this. He said he ain't done yet, and he has been one of the best in the world for the last 15 years, and he is not going to stop until he is the very best in the business. He mentioned that today will be a historical day because it is the day where the new Adam Cole was born, and that one day, very soon, there will be only one man at the top of the mountain, and his name is Adam Cole. So this was great. This is a great segment here. It was great to see him back. I was not expecting Adam Cole to appear on this show, clearly. I was hoping that he would be back at some point. You enter the new year and, you go 6 or so months without seeing Adam Cole, so you hope that he might be coming back soon. But that's not knowing what the status is of his injuries. So having him come out here in this surprise segment was really cool, and him cutting this very passionate babyface promo here, talking to the fans and showing his gratitude, it came off really very, very well. And with this one promo, Adam Cole shot up on the list for me personally of names for future challengers, if not even future candidates to dethrone MJF in that world championship. This is the kind of promo that just changes everything. People have their names. Bryan Danielson is obviously the next up in line to get a shot at MJF. I don't think anyone really expects him to be the one to beat him. But then you have names like Adam Page, Hangman Adam Page. You have Wardlow, maybe Darby Allin. People have thrown out Eddie Kingston, which I think is just a golden opportunity to do that match at some point down the line. These are a lot of names who people have thrown out as potential challengers, and some of these people who could be the ones to dethrone MJF down the line. But after this one promo from Adam Cole and how the fans responded so well to him in this segment, which part of it is because he's been gone so long, but another part of it is they genuinely like Adam Cole and they genuinely care about his well-being. And so him being out there, that kind of crowd response here, and that type of promo that he cut, that is the kind of promo that really can launch a babyface into the stratosphere. Now, we'll see him as he comes back. We'll see him in the ring. We'll see how he functions. Maybe this is just a one-night thing and he'll go right back to being a heel and this is all for naught. But after that kind of response and after that kind of speech that he gave here, this is a guy who is tailor-made to become a top babyface on this show. And I think he is someone who you can build up as the year goes on. Give him some big feuds, give him some big wins here and there, and you can easily build him up as a challenger for MJF in that championship later on down the year. And I would be so bold as to say he could even be a top candidate as someone who could beat MJF. There are some people who you throw in there against MJF who you don't really think will win. And I think Adam Cole can be on the list of future challengers, and I think he can be on an even shorter list of people who could potentially beat MJF. That's just how strong this promo was from Adam Cole here on this show. So good stuff here. Glad to have Adam Cole back. Glad to see he is healthy and well. Speaking of healthy and well, we opened the show with a match between Jon Moxley and the freshly cleared to compete Hangman Adam Page. This was a rematch from their championship match back in October, where Moxley hit the King Kong Lariat on Hangman and he landed on his head and got concussed. He's been coming out this last month or so, attacking Moxley, trying to get cleared, and he was finally cleared, and we finally got the match here. And this was a great match. This was a great match to start the show. Lariats galore in this match. Of course, it was the King Kong Lariat that injured Hangman in the first place. So in this match, in between all the other big moves they were doing, we had a lariat probably every 2 minutes or so in this match. It got a little too much down the line, but it added to the story that they were telling. Hangman was easily the sentimental favorite to the crowd, and Moxley was getting cheers, but he did kind of play up the heelish side a little bit. At one point, the crowd was chanting cowboy shit. I think this came not long after Hangman kicked out of a Death Rider from Moxley and escaped the bully choke and all that. We had Moxley flipping off the crowd in response to their cowboy shit chants. So he was definitely playing up the heel shtick a little bit here. But Moxley, he had already hit a pile driver earlier in the match. Hangman kicked out of one at that point. So Moxley goes for another pile driver here, but then Hangman slips out of that, ends up hitting the Deadeye. A little bit later on, both men go down. They get back up, back and forth strikes between both men, and Hangman hits one big final lariat that turns Moxley inside out, and then he goes to the apron, hits the buckshot lariat, and gets the clean win. This is only the second time in his AEW career that Jon Moxley has been pinned clean in the middle of the ring. The only other time was against CM Punk at All Out last year. So that's a way to protect a guy. After the match, they were teasing that maybe Moxley himself was a little banged up. The referee, I believe it was Paul Turner, was checking on him. Doc Samson got in the ring, and they were all crouched in the corner checking on Moxley. They went to commercial break, and they came back, and Excalibur was mentioning how Doc Samson helped Moxley walk to the back. So they were kind of teasing that he might have gotten banged up here. So we'll see. There was no mention of Moxley again for the rest of the night, as far as I know. So we'll see where they go from there with that. We had a tag team match on the show where Big Bill and Lee Moriarty teamed up against Jungle Hook. That's Jungle Boy Jack Perry and the FTW champion Hook. The whole match was built around the one big spot, which was Hook lifting up Big Bill for a T-bone suplex. He kept trying, but Big Bill was stopping him. But then they make their way over to the corner that Jungle Boy was in, and Jungle Boy up top hits a diving missile drop kick to the back of Big Bill's head and back area. And with him dazed in that instant second, Hook gets him up and hits him with the T-bone suplex and sends him to the outside, where he looks dumbfounded. He looks flabbergasted, does Big Bill. Meanwhile, in the ring, there's a little bit of a mix-up here with Lee Moriarty and Jungle Boy. At this point, Jungle Boy was the legal man in the match, and then he locks in the snare trap. Lee taps out, and Jungle Hook pick up the win. Fun while it lasted, and the whole match was built around that one big spot, and we got it. The fans went crazy for it, and that's all there is to it. We also had Bryan Danielson competing on this show. Of course, he is on a fast track towards facing MJF in a 1-hour Iron Man match for the championship at Revolution. But of course, he has to win every single match he appears in on TV from now until February 8th. And this night was the first of those big matches. Here he took on Konosuke Takeshita, who shared a little in-ring time with MJF. Before Danielson can make his entrance, MJF came out, cut a promo, was talking about Takeshita, made a Takeshita joke about his name, and we had little signs of racist MJF here, talking about Konnichiwa and all that stuff, and saying how they only speak American here after Konosuke was cutting a promo on him in Japanese. And then he spoke English and told MJF to kiss his ass, and the two had a little bit of a shoving match. Then MJF told Aubrey Edwards to tell him to get out of the ring. And then MJF proceeded to cut a promo, a great heel promo, as only MJF can. He was even talking shit about some celebrities that were in the crowd. Ken Jeong was out there. He talked about him and his canceled ABC show. Freddie Prinze Jr., who got a Freddie chant from this crowd, believe it or not. MJF was talking about him and how he's most famous for being the co-star and playing Fred in Scooby-Doo, and he called him a Scooby-Dooby douchebag. So that was cute. But MJF, he's healing it up, and then finally, Bryan Danielson makes his entrance. He comes out, and he just guns it down the ring, into the ring, and MJF just sprints right out of there, up the entrance ramp, and to the back. So that was funny. But then we had the actual match with Danielson and Takeshita, and surprise, surprise, this match was excellent. This was an incredible match between these guys. We know how great Bryan Danielson is. He's one of the best in the entire world. Meanwhile, Takeshita, who only first started appearing on AEW television last year, and then he went back to Japan. Then he moved back to the States permanently. So he's been here. He's here. And if you didn't believe it before, hopefully this match here proved it. This guy is legit. This guy is a future main eventer in this company. He is a future world champion. Yes, I'm sure he'll win the All-Atlantic Championship or the TNT Championship somewhere in there, but this guy is a future top star in this company. The guy was just doing some incredible stuff in this match, hitting some incredible moves. At one point, he hit an avalanche lariat off the top turnbuckle. The dude was great. There was a couple of hiccups here. There was one spot where they were both on the outside and Danielson was going for his running knee off of the apron, but Takeshita caught him, but it looked like it was going for like a Hurricane Rana or something like that, but both men ended up crashing down. Danielson started to sell his knee, was potentially hurt, but nothing really came from it, and they kind of recovered very quickly. Takeshita got him up and hit him with a brain buster on the floor. So he was just going crazy in this match. Back in the ring, a little bit later on, both men are going back and forth. Takeshita hits a big lariat and turned Bryan inside out. Bryan tried to go for a victory roll on Takeshita, but Takeshita stopped it midway through and just slammed him down onto the mat and then hit him with a wheelbarrow German suplex and just flung him back, slammed him down, went for the cover, but it was only good for a 2 count. Bryan, a little bit later on, hit the running Busaiku knee, and Takeshita kicked out at 2. So Bryan even let him kick out of the big knee spot there. So I thought that was great. That was a nice endorsement of him. But it was just the beginning of the end because Bryan grabbed his arms and started to stomp on his face. And then he locked him in the regal stretch and got the win. I think he tapped out. He either tapped out or passed out. Either way, Bryan got the win here. After the match, he shook Takeshita's hand. He raised his arm and showed him respect. Takeshita is a future main eventer in this company. I don't care what anyone says. This guy is too talented and has already, in a very short period of time, connected with the crowd on a level that I never could have anticipated. And he definitely has main event potential in him. But I knew he was not going to win this match due to the stipulation that they laid out last week for Danielson, where he has to rack up these wins and he has to win all the way up until February 8th. So he basically has to win on TV for a full month in order to get the championship match with MJF at the next pay-per-view. And we now know that next week, Bryan Danielson will be competing against Bandito. So that should be another really great match. On the show, we also had a women's tag team match where the women's champion, Jamie Hayter, teamed up with Britt Baker to take on Saraya and Toni Storm. A lot of people, myself included, thought that this was going to be a fake out and Toni Storm would somehow be taken out of this match and we would get the AEW debut, whether she signed with the company or just a one-off appearance, the debut of Mercedes Moné, of course the former Sasha Banks, but we did not get that. And I will be the first to admit that was fantasy booking on my part. That was what I expected, and I did not get it. But I'm okay with that, because as cool as it would have been to see her in this match, she was not needed for this match. This match had plenty of heat. This match had plenty of crowd investment because the fans love themselves some Jamie Hayter. And she was a total star in this match. So much so that Toni Storm and even Saraya, their reactions seemed kind of lackluster in comparison. Like, out of the women in this match, the biggest star, based on the crowd reaction, was easily Jamie Hayter, which is good because she is the world champion of the women's division. So that's good. You want to have that. But it was just very shocking. Midway through the match, Hikaru Shida came out and she was in the corner of the babyfaces, which screamed angle alert based on how we got to this match last week with Shida getting snubbed by Saraya. And it played into the finish, where Rebel got up on the apron. She was distracting the referee. The ref had his back turned, and Shida slid her kendo stick into the ring between Britt Baker and Toni Storm. But Britt was the one who got to the kendo stick first. She used it on Tony, and then Jamie came in, hit her with the haterade, and got the win for herself and Britt Baker. They showed Shida on the outside after the match. She looked stunned. I don't know if that's real stunned or if she's just a really good actress, because I fully expect there to be some kind of confrontation down the line with Shida and Toni Storm. I don't know if that's going to be a Shida heel turn, whatever it is, but after last week with what went down with Shida and Saraya, I'm sure it's going to set up a Shida Toni Storm match at some point, and it might even set up a Shida Saraya match at some point, all of which would be excellent to see. And then we had a segment with the Jericho Appreciation Society where all the members were out in the ring gloating. Action Andretti and Ricky Starks were on the stage. They interrupted them. They had some banter. It didn't really amount to a whole lot of anything. Andretti was making jokes about Daniel Garcia and his new babysitter, Sammy Guevara, and how Sammy can't even control his own wife, who low-blowed Andretti last week, but Andretti spun that around here and talked about how she had her hands on his junk. So I thought that was funny. Ricky Starks was cutting a promo on Jake Hager and challenged him to a match on Dynamite next week, even though they already ran through the match cards for the upcoming shows and they already announced Ricky Starks and Jake Hager in that graphic. So it was very weird here. Excalibur had to quickly butt in and mention how Ricky asked Tony Khan for the match and he was granted it. So he kind of had to backtrack a little bit here, but regardless, it was still fine. And that's a match we are getting next week. Hopefully it's another win for Ricky Starks. I'm just glad to see Ricky Starks still on the TV show, still in a prominent spot, and still doing stuff. So that's good. And that was pretty much it for the show. There was a few other backstage segments, but nothing really monumental to mention right now at this time. The show overall was just a lot of fun. It was great fun, great action from top to bottom, and they're in a new market here with the LA crowd, and that really helped. The crowd here was awesome, and it really added a lot of life to this show. So great stuff here from AEW, and as I mentioned at the top of the video, it was very much needed after all of the stuff relating to WWE came out the previous night. I'm not going to get into it here. Thankfully, as of this moment right now that I'm speaking, it looks like all of that may have been much ado about nothing, or at least very premature, which is good. I know my sentiments and a lot of other sentiments about the situation still stand, but at least for now, the situation looks like it's not happening right now. And so that's good. But when there actually is news to report about it, I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people coming out there talking about it, and you might hear something from me too. But till then, I will continue to cover what actually is news, what actually is known, like this episode of Dynamite here tonight, this great episode of Dynamite. A lot of fun watching it. And keep eyes on the channel. If you like what you see, if you like what you hear, hit the like button, subscribe, comment down below, and of course follow me on Twitter at DerekJ Speaks, and I will be bringing you more wrestling content in the future. So until next time, thank you and good night.